Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Power Over Tomorrow. I'm your host and resident financial advisor, Tyrone T.S. Mitchell, and we are coming to you straight from the office of T.S. Mitchell Financial, LLC, your independent and trusted registered investment advisory firm specializing in wealth management for your insurance, investments, tax planning, and financial planning needs. Remember, the information that we share with you here on Power Over Tomorrow is for educational purposes. It is not meant for the solicitation or the endorsement of any particular stock or investment. Stocks, investments, mutual funds, they do have risk, and unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. So continue to hit us up on Facebook at Power Over Tomorrow. Continue to hit us up on Twitter at TS Mitchell Power. Send us your questions, your comments, and your concerns, because we definitely want to make sure that you have sound information so that you too can make an educated decision concerning your family, your future, and your finances. We want to thank our sponsors for helping make Power Over Tomorrow a program that you can turn to. Our sponsors are Zulina Health, Wellness, and Fitness, Paper to Film Production, Revolution Mills, and Renovations. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, our sponsors help make this possible, and as well as you. So listen, we are going to talk about something. And y'all know me, I'm always talking about something, but I listen too. All right, I listen. And what we talked about a little bit during one of our other segments, we ended that program speaking on cash flow, how you manage your money. We know that the model of Power Over Tomorrow and the parent company of T.S. Mitchell Financial is Deuteronomy 8:18. Remember the Lord your God, for it is He that gives you the ability to make wealth. So when we remember these things, we also have to take into consideration the responsibility we have to manage things properly. This thing that we have called cash, this thing that we see, called flow. Yeah, put it together. We got to manage this cash flow. And why? Because it helps determine truly the direction that we're moving in. So what we're going to talk about today, and if you're seeing what I see, then I'm glad we're seeing it together. And that is cash flow statements, your money matters. Yes, every now and then, you got to nip some things in the bud. That's right. The folks call me the bud nipper, and I'm going to nip some buds. Now, let's nip this thing called financial cash flow in the bud, because money matters. And what I'm trying to say is that let's do a bit of understanding. See, as it's read here on this slide, we're going to go through these slides, and we're going to address them as we go, and we're going to talk about it. It's understanding your money matters and managing your cash flow are an integral part of any sound financial management strategy. Effectively managing your cash flow can free up capital and save and invest assets you can put to work, helping you pursue your financial goals. That is so important, because when we understand the importance of managing our cash flow, it helps prevent the loss of money. Now, earlier on the show, and if some of you are watching from the 5 o'clock show, we went a little extended because there was a lot of questions, and callers were calling in on the local show in Columbia, South Carolina. And the question that they were asking was some great questions. One question that came across the board is about young folks who are getting married. Is it important that they have counseling when it comes to finances? I said most definitely. Because when we think about the divorce rate, many times divorces come about primarily on three things: infidelity, communication, and money. Now, I say this: if you don't communicate well, you're going to be an infidel when it comes to handling your money. All right? So when we speak about putting that together, and I address that concern by saying it is important on all levels, whether you're young, you're old, or older, more mature. is that we focus on understanding how to handle these things. Because when we set money aside, we want our money to make money. I often say that there are two ways to make money in this world. Legally, that is you at work and your money at work. Well, you basically work maybe what, 16, 17, maybe 18 hours in a day. All right, but your money can work 24 hours when it's managed properly. So let's look at this. Let's tap into slide number 2 and see what we got there. In the next slide, we're talking about money, or we say going green. You know what? Going green. And what do we mean by that? Is that when we are talking about going green, we're talking about putting money in a place where it can work. Now, we've often said this here on Power Over Tomorrow, is that in reference to what my father used to tell me, he used to tell me what? Money don't grow on trees. And I finally realized Pop was right. You know, Pop didn't have a PhD or an MD and all that other stuff, but he had common sense when it came to handling money. And he said, money doesn't grow on trees. Didn't you know I had to go to college, get into finance before I realized that money is made of cotton and linen and not paper from trees? Okay. So I said, man, oh man, look at that. That's right. See, this thing that we call the American currency is made of cotton. And so, you know, and that's a whole nother show. I think we did that and we may do it again, revisit it. Is that, are you still a slave to cotton? Woo, that's a topic there. Are you still a slave to cotton? Not necessarily the raw product, but the byproduct of it. You know, when we find ourselves still trying to make ends meet, still living paycheck to paycheck, still struggling with the fact that we may have what is called too much month at the end of the money. And we're still dealing with all of these situations. We find ourselves captive in bondage sometimes to the trials and tribulations that are before us. But I say it then and I say it now and I will forever say it. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. You can make it through these times and situations when you have proper instructions and proper strategies. All right, so when we're looking at this, we're talking about going green. All right, I'm sorry, my producer. You know what? I have a great friend in my producer, but sometimes she tests me to see if I can chew gum and walk at the same time by sending messages that catch my eye. You know, ladies and gentlemen, Power Over Tomorrow and SRN Live TV, we are a family. We are. And we love making each other better at what we do. So by all means, keep sending up for pop messages and I'll get a little bit better at walking and chewing gum. Now, this thing that we call money, all right? It says how much of that money is going into your savings and investments. The question is that it was talking about, according to the most recent information, is that 25 million pieces of paper currency is being produced, which equates to $560 million a day. $560 million a day is being produced. But the underlying question that we have to understand and ask ourselves is, how much of that money am I getting? How much is it going into my savings and my investments? So we focus on those concepts, and the understanding of that is because just because, you know, folks may be going through some financial times, money is still being moved. And think about going green. I've often said one time is that during the Great Depression, all right, when you look at the skylines of places like New York, Chicago, those older cities with those older skyscrapers, the bulk of those skyscrapers were built during the Great Depression. Now, we always have said that during the Great Depression, nobody was making any money, but someone was making money. Somebody was making money. So what does that mean? Is that when we understand the facilitation of money and how it flows from one area to the next, it entices us to do what? to diversify so that way we can always have a portfolio working to go green. Now, let's move on to the next segment here. We're going to continue to work with this. So we're talking about understanding money matters. We're talking about going green. All right. But here we say what? There are times when we need to rebalance our account. And why is it that we need to rebalance? Because everything is not going to work at the same time. So therefore, when you rebalance, when you're moving money from one area to the next, you are letting your money flow so that it can build. But the one thing that tears our money down and the opportunity to build is procrastination. Someone said procrastination is the enemy to progress. So let's see if we can have this quick video for you on the cost of procrastination.
You want to put time on yourself.
There we go.
The sooner you begin investing, the longer your money can work for you. But it's easy to procrastinate. Let's take a look at what procrastination can cost you. Sally and Bob each decide to invest $250,000 into a retirement account. When Sally turns 50, she starts contributing $25,000 a year to an account that earns a hypothetical 6%. After 10 years, she stops making annual payments. Bob, on the other hand, puts off his investing program. Finally, at age 60, he begins setting aside $25,000 a year into an account that earns a hypothetical 6%. Though both have contributed equal amounts, Sally has the magic of compound interest working for her. When they both reach age 70, Sally's account balance is nearly twice the size of Bob's. Procrastination can be costly, and as Bob learned, when you get a late start, it can be difficult to make up for lost time. Call today, and let's get started now.
So that's the issue when we're talking about procrastination. All right, what we are speaking about is time has to be on your side. When you have time on your side, it allows you to be able to invest more, to be able to manage the money in a more efficient way. But many times folks will always try and say, well, I'm going to wait. I'm going to see, if I can do this, I can do that. Matter of fact, one of the questions that we incurred during our local show was that, should people wait? Well, I'm a firm believer. Now is the appointed time. This is the time, because no matter how much you wait to do something, you will always find yourself waiting to do something. So when you have the opportunity, do the best you can, and do not allow procrastination to stop you from reaching your goals. When we want to reach our goals, it takes an effort. Someone once said, it may have been me, I don't know, but I get my information from hopefully good sources, that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. And oftentimes the first step we will see on the next slide, slide 4 of 18, the next step is turning off my telephone each and every week. I need to get a list of the to-do list before I go on the show. All right. I know y'all are calling in, but you got to understand, I got to handle this. I want to say I got to handle my business. Now, the first business that we all have to do is we have to handle how we handle money. Now, my youngest son asked me, he said, Dad, what's a credit score? Well, credit score is a calculation that is used to see if someone is quote unquote worthy of receiving credit or receiving money. And it also dictates how well you pay things back. So that's what credit scores are used for. And as we see on this presentation here, once you understand the role time plays in your long-term investing outlook, you can better prepare to make wise decisions when it comes to cash management. Having a good handle on your credit can affect your purchasing power. Now, here's a point. People with, as we say, lower credit scores. As a matter of fact, here's an example. To the right, we see someone has a 620 credit score, and to the left, someone has a 760 credit score. They are both borrowing the same thing. They're both getting credit on the same thing. But the difference is, when you have a higher interest rate to pay over a 30-year fixed period. All right, they're buying the house over a 30-year fixed period, right? The interest rate at 5.83, and then you versus at a 760 credit score, the interest rate is at 4.24. What does that mean on a monthly basis? You're borrowing the same money, okay? But what does it mean? And matter of fact, this is taken into consideration that they're borrowing a hypothetical $400,000 over a 30-year fixed period. All right, so this is, let's say we're buying for a home. Now, with the difference of how many points? The difference is what? 100, with the difference of 140 points on a credit score. Look at the difference when it comes to the money you have to pay. Someone who has a lower credit score and is subjected to a 5.83% interest rate versus someone who has a higher credit score and receives a 4.24% interest rate, the difference between the two, the person who has a 6.20 interest rate on this illustration has to pay $2,354, and the person who has a 760 credit score pays $1,966. So the difference is $388 a month. Now, over the life of the mortgage, there is a difference, and the difference, as we see here, is $140,000 over the life of the mortgage. $140,000. I am quite sure somewhere down the road that you could have used that $140,000 for something else, whether it would have been to send your child to college, whether it would have been to cover medical expenses, or even just maybe buy a second home or plan for your retirement. That's why credit scores are essential. Building a good credit score helps with your cash flow. Here we see, because of a lower credit score, the cash flow is going out the door. Now, I know that's not grammatically correct, but it sounded cute. The cash flow is going out the door. Okay, listen. Door, all right? For those of our educators out there, door, okay? Now, what we want to do, we want to minimize the amount of money that is going out of the door and be able to retain that cash flow. So let's look at slide number 5. All right, so we talk about the credit score is important. When we manage, what we're doing is we have to build a strategy. Many times folks want to go out and they want to buy products. Envision a triangle. All right, at the top of that triangle is smaller than the base. The common way to do things that folks typically do, the traditional way, is that they will spend a lot of times buying things, buying CDs, buying money markets, buying material things, just buying stuff. And they spend more time doing that. Then they determine that in the middle section of the pyramid, you have the body, or what we call the portfolio, all right? And then the last section, the top part, they spend little time developing a strategy. What I say is this: spend the most of your time developing a strategy. Let the strategy be the base, the foundation of what you're doing. Then in the second stage, you have your portfolio. And then the very top part is when you buy the product. See, the product should match the portfolio, which matches the strategy. That is the professional way to do it. Now, when you develop that strategy, the type of things you want to look at as far as putting in your portfolio, we see here. That portfolio is your financial formula. One of the goals of a sound financial strategy is to understand the appropriate mix. And I do say appropriate because there are sometimes things get in the mix of things that are not appropriate. So the appropriate mix of your investments on the bottom of of this illustration is what we call cash alternatives, which have a low risk but also offer a low potential return. When you're using cash alternatives as part of your portfolio strategy, that cash alternative is for things that you need for, such as your emergency fund. Things that you can get money that you can get your hands on without having to wait, what we say, trade plus 3 days, without having to wait for it to be traded and converted into cash. So you definitely need to have some cash alternatives, money markets, some CDs that are not frozen for maybe 5 years. Some CDs, maybe a 30-day CD, 60 days, or maybe 2 or 3 months. I would say the most. That way, if interest rates change, you can jump on some new interest rates or maybe find other opportunities for your money to grow. But you definitely want to keep a segment of your money liquid. The next section is what we call fixed interest. Now, with fixed interest, sometimes that requires the money to be held for a certain period of time, such as a CD. A longer term CD may require the money to be held for a year, 2 years, or even 5 years. But that interest rate is going to be fixed, it's going to come in on a steady basis. Now, am I promoting CDs only? No, because I like to make sure that when I speak with people, that they understand that certain investments require a time frame. And if you are in need of money and you got to break that CD, that means, which, let me say this, that certificate of deposit, okay? Not the thing that plays music, all right? But when you have to break that certificate of deposit, they often will charge you a penalty, which is a portion of the interest that you would have made. But there are other investments and things that pay a fixed rate of interest or pay forms of interest to you. Some of those things investment that we look at, clients can have dividends. Dividends are not guaranteed, but they are expected to be paid on time. That's a good part about understanding the different aspects of your financial formula. Another area would be the bond portfolio. Now, cash alternatives with money basically you need to have for emergencies within 1 year. Fixed interest, okay, you may say, well, in that case, I may not need that money for maybe about a year or two. I can put it in that fixed interest area. Bonds, when you're dealing with bonds, you definitely want to give yourself at least a good 3 to 5 years for those bonds to work, mature, pay their dividends. Bonds are good because they're often the backing by the full faith and credit of the government or municipality or the corporation which you're buying. Yes, corporations do issue stocks and bonds. Now, the difference is when you buy a bond of a corporation, you are lending them your money. As a bond, we say that is what is called a debenture. It is a debt instrument to the company. You are lending that corporation your money, or you're lending the government your money, and they agree to pay that bond back plus interest. Now, depending upon the amount of money you pay into the bond and the interest you receive, or the final payment you get back, that is your interest, all right, or we call the yield. Bonds are good. They're good to have a part of your portfolio, but understand when it comes to your cash flow, you know that bonds have a grading, all right? And I say it's similar to how we grade things when we are in school, A, B, C, and D. The A's are the top quality bonds. The B's are good bonds, but they can do a little bit better. The C's and the D's, while they may be passing in some areas, all right, when you're dealing with C grade and D grade bonds, those are what we call junk bonds. And with junk bonds, there's a higher level of risk. You know what? Many folks may use, understand the different terminology that they're making it they call them high yield bonds. High yield bonds is a euphemism or a marketing term because years ago, back in the late 80s and 90s, there was a junk bond crash, okay? So therefore, they said, we got to do something to win the public back. Let's no longer call them junk bonds. Let's call them high yield bonds. Same thing. That's why I am so happy to be blessed to be in this industry for over 30-something years, because I've seen how they changed the name, but the roles in the game is still the same. But when you are dealing with bonds, always understand the grade of the bond that you're receiving. Because if you think you have a high grade bond, all right, but in essence you have a high yield bond, that also is reflective of the amount of risk and interest that you're going to make. All right, so let's be mindful of that. It still should be a part of your cash flow, but just understand, what it is that you have. The next section above the bond, as we see, is the stock, which is above the bonds. Same thing. They are issued by corporations, and with the stocks, what you want to do is that you want to look at the quality of the stock, because the quality of the stock will often dictate the type of returns that it makes. One thing that we do is that when we sit down with our clients, we want to look at not just the amount of capital gains the stock may make, but we also want to look at something called, does the stock pay a yield? If the stock pays a yield, that means it's paying dividends for owning the stock. That also helps with the growth of it. Stocks that are issued by blue chip companies have a greater, how can we say, a greater history, a reporting history. So you want to look at that. When you are dealing with stocks and you're understanding your cash flow, this is part of your cash flow that should be 10 years out. So what we're looking at is your cash flow has different segments. Think about this. You're on a football field. You're standing at the 1 yard line, and you know you got 99 yards to go before you get to the touchdown. You have different plays designed to go 5 yards, 10 yards, 30 yards, 50 yards. You have plays that are designed, and you keep that in your repertoire. So when we're looking at the formula, we're looking at different financial plays in your financial formula, your repertoire, to help you reach your goal. So your cash alternatives are the part of your cash flow that is 1 year out. Your fixed interest is part of your cash flow that is 2 to 3 years out. Your bonds are part of your cash flow that may be 3 to 5 years out. Your stocks are part of your cash flow that may be 5 to 10, maybe even 15 years out. And your speculative investments. The speculative investments are those things that are not blue chip. They are, I'm not going to say gambling, all right, but they are higher risk factor, which require them to have a longer period of time to produce the interest rates that they're gearing for. So when you're dealing with speculative investments, that is really something that you can set aside for 15 to 20 years and not have to be concerned about the short-term fluctuation. Those are the longest terms. And if you look at this example here, it is also the smallest portion of your financial formula. Let's move to slide 6. When we understand the strategies, and what we say here is that we have to be mindful. Our cash flow, and I often say, should be like an EKG reading. You know, if your cash flow, or if the money that you're making in your savings is a flat line going across, you know, on an EKG, that's a danger sign. And with inflation, purchasing power money risk, dollar value risk, and the future value of money, if your money is steady going like a flat line, that's a danger sign, because inflation typically is going to be higher than the interest rate that you make in a regular savings account. All right. Purchasing power. A dollar today is not worth, will not be worth a dollar tomorrow. So what we can buy today for a dollar, it may require $1.10 tomorrow. That's purchasing power, tackled with inflation. And another thing is taxation. Now, when you decide to invest, when you decide to manage your cash flow, even if it's in a savings account, at the end of the year, and you get this thing called a 1099 statement, that statement dictates how much interest you've made. Now, if you are, let's say for instance, you make 1% on your savings account, right? And I'm going to put in, I'm going to write, let's say for instance, you made $100 in interest. All right, so you got $100 for the year. Now, that $100 is going to be subjected to what? Subjected to taxes. If you are in the 20% tax bracket, all right, you made 100, you pay 20% in taxes. What's that? $20. So that $100 is only worth $80 after taxes. Along with that, you have to pay, is subject to inflation, okay? So inflation is at, let's say 3%. So we take 3% off that, not the 80, but off the 100. So that's another $3, right? All right, so now we got to subtract that $3 from the $80. That leaves you with what? $77. So when you think about the interest rates you make, so a 1% interest, when you take out taxes and you take out inflation, all right, a 1% interest on a bank account is actually 0.77, based upon a tax bracket of 20% and 3% inflation. So even if you are making interest on your accounts, you have to take into consideration taxes and inflation. When we think about that, the effect of a financial crisis, whether it's the housing crisis or the market itself, can have a great impact on how you save. So there's a trend. And the trend is, it says in 2009 was that Americans broke a long-term trend of low personal savings and increased amount of money they held. So in other words, we find ourselves having to hold on to money, but the way we hold on to it also depends upon how we're going to invest it. All right, so when you're holding on to your money, don't lose the momentum that you had when times were good. I've often said this, and many times, matter of fact, one of my business coaches once said this, is that when business gets tough and money gets tough, don't stop marketing. The way you make your way out of a slow business turn is to continue to market, continue to invest money in advertising and marketing, because you're not the only one that's going through something. But when people see that you're still capable of weathering the storm, business comes back to you. The same thing it is when you're dealing with financial issues. When you're dealing with financial issues in the home, don't stop saving. You may not be able to save as much as you used to, but don't stop the process. And the reason why you don't stop the process, because, you know, Mama once said, you don't stop churning when butter is coming. In other words, when you are, for those who remember the days, you know, we didn't get our butter or our margin from the store. We had to churn that milk, keep churning it and churning it and churning. And then when you see, there used to be a song called "Cream Always Rises to the Top." Well, that cream that comes to the top, you skim it off, right? And then you set it aside and use that to make butter. But when you see that cream coming to the top, don't stop turning. Your arms may be tired, your back may be hurting, but you keep going. When you are dealing with financial savings and the trends of going up and downs in life, keep saving. So even if you have to move your savings from $100 a month to $10 a month, or even down to $1 a month, you'll be better for keeping a healthy trend when it comes to your savings. Now, on slide number 7, we're going to talk about the next aspect. It talks about a close-up. All right. It says personal savings rate have trended lower since the recession ended. So what are we going to do about that? Folks remember bad times. You know, you can be going good for days on end for centuries, but you know something bad comes about, you forget all the good times and you focus on what happened that was bad. So the pattern that we want to build is a pattern of increasing personal savings and increasing the rate of the money that we are saving. So not only do we increase the pattern, but we also increase the amount that we're putting in. All right, in good times, all right, and during bad times, it's understandable, you know, that we have different feelings of things, but it should be consistent with our approach to how we save. That's why when we take a look at our personal situations, we want to take a close look at it. Sometimes we look at our finances from afar. You know, many folks do that with their bills too. You know, because I had clients, you know, not when I bill my clients, but when they get statements from me. They say, "Oh, Mr. Mitchell, we saw your name on it. We just put it aside." I said, "No, don't do that. I need you to open your statements up on a regular basis. Look at your statements. See what it says. See if it's so. And then that way, if there's ever a mistake or something that occurred on your statement, because you've taken a close-up look at it, you're able to detect whether it is right or wrong. And if it is right, then fine. We know we keep moving. But if it's wrong, it gets corrected. Before you get down the period of time, many times the financial institutions will tell you this. You need to contact them within 3 to 5 days of receipt of your statement. And if you don't contact them before then, all right, before that time period, it's going to stay the same. So always look at your statements. Take a close look at it. Review your savings rates. Review your approach. Make sure it's steady. Make sure it's consistent. And make sure it's attainable. That's what you want to do. Now, when we look at slide number 8, we're going to talk about a little bit about where to put your money. And in slide number 8, it's talking about how to use different aspects of savings. And I think it's similar to the formula that it said. We can use savings. We can put money in passbook savings. Now, for those who remember, passbook savings, I think I have one in here somewhere. Hold on a second. I think I may have one. Y'all remember what a passbook account looked like? It was a little thing that the banks gave you. I got it. I may just bring it out for the next show. All right. It's a little book. And in that book, you would take it to the bank. We call it passbook. And they would either write it in or stamp it in how much you put in as a deposit or as a withdrawal. That was your passbook savings. You know, it is getting to me. I know I got that joke. I'll tell you. All right. I'm going to find it. But that's what the passbook savings was. I had it in the office somewhere. I just can't quite remember. That's okay. But that savings aspect was teaching us to put money aside. And then when we opened up that book, we saw how much interest we made. You know, but then back then, interest rates on regular savings account was 10, 11, maybe even 12%. A far, far cry from what we are making now. All right. We talked a little bit about certificates of deposits. All right. That requires money to be held for a period of time. You also have money markets and treasury bills. these things are different types of investments you can use for basically what we call your cash alternatives. And I believe on these segments, if we go to slide number 9, all right, we talked a little bit about taxes and inflation, because when we think about the initial investment, all right, over 1 year, it will grow to a certain point. But when you take out taxes, we see on this illustration, a $10,000 investment. This $10,000 investment, all right, is making 1%. So after 1 year, it is worth $10,100. But then we have to take out what? I think we said this before, 3% for inflation. So the 10,100 drops down to $10,075. And then after that, we have to take out money for taxes. And if we estimate that the tax rate on here, the illustration is 25%, so a $10,000 investment, when you take into consideration taxes and inflation, will only be worth $9,775 because of taxes and inflation. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to slide number 10. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, it is so important to understand where your money is being invested. Because when you understand where your money is being invested, then you can understand the importance of having a sound, predictable pattern to your investment portfolio. Money markets may go down, things like the S&P may go up, all right? You don't want to be so conservative that your money is not keeping pace with inflation, but often you don't want to be so aggressive that you are putting yourself at a higher risk than you should be. So when we're talking about a predictable pattern, somewhere between the S&P 500 and the money market asset funds is where you should be with proper instructions. Let's look at slide number 11, and we're going to see what we have here. All right, how much do you need? You know, we talk about this quite often. We are still talking about cash flow. How much do you need? How much do you need to replace your income? If you are unable to work, where is that money going to come from? The way to replace your income is, even before investments, is to make sure you have adequate insurance. See, insurance, especially life insurance, it is not to replace you, but it is to replace the money that you are providing for your family. Your family needs to have a certain amount of insurance to protect your income. You also need to protect your income in case of disability. And what I mean by disability is that you are unable to work due to accident or sickness. Where's that money going to come from? Many times your jobs will no longer pay you if you're not there to produce. And if you're not there to produce, then the money stream stops. Replacing that income is essential. Another key area is your emergency fund. We said this before. You need to build a cash flow to where it equals at least 6 months worth of income. And typically we say 6 months worth of income because many times if a person is out of work for more than 90 days, they would end up using sick days, vacation days, and going on short-term disability. Well, Social Security, if you get approved on the first go-round, typically you have to be out of work for 6 months. That's why the rule of thumb is 6 months worth of savings to cover your expenses. Now, I did say something. I said, if you are approved for Social Security, the reason why I said that is because they will let you know, the Social Security Administration will let you know that when you file your first claim, you by 95% will be rejected. That's right. Not just once, but twice. You may be rejected 2 or 3 times when you're filing for Social Security disability. And the reason or the rationale for that is this. They believe that it weeds out fraudulent claims. I've had clients return back to work before they got their first Social Security check. But we were fortunate enough to have money set aside in different vehicles to cover that period of time. And then also you want to make sure you have what is called your upcoming expenses. There are expenses that you can predict, and then there are those unexpected, unpredictable expenses. Cash flow. How much money do you need? In slide number 12, it talks a little bit about how to help determine that how much you need. This is what you got to do. You got to consider some things. Consider, are you a 1 or 2 income household? If you are a 2 income household, then we definitely have to protect those incomes. Because if it requires both incomes to keep a roof over your head, food on your table, clothes on your back, then cash flow management is essential for both parties. What's your debt level? How much do you owe? Okay, how much? You have to take that into consideration because that debt is going to be there. And remember, the debt will also dictate what your credit score is going to be and how you handle it. So if your credit score is constantly getting hit by negative information, the score is going to drop, your interest rates are going to rise, and your out-of-pocket cash flow or expense is going to increase. So manage that debt. It says what? Special needs and dependence. All right? There are special needs, whether we're dealing with special need family members or special needs situations. People are dependent upon what we do. Many folks today are caring for aging parents, at the same time raising children, at the same time they're in the middle trying to make ends meet. And we call that the sandwich generation. So with this generation, the multitude of people that are out there, people, whether they are our parents or our children, they're dependent on what we do. All right, you can save money if the only way that you're saving money right now is in your retirement plan. I say that's good, but it may not always be the best. The reason for that is because in times of emergency, you find yourself taking out loans on your 401k plans, loans on your retirement accounts to help make ends meet. I'm gonna make this note right now while I'm thinking about it. Our next show, we're going to talk about the disparity of retirement accounts. And what I want to focus on, and I'm letting you know now because I want you back and I want your insight, the disparity of retirement accounts. And what we will see is that there is a segment of those who save for retirement who have loans on their accounts so much that they are actually they are mortgaging their future to take care of short-term needs. That's the stuff that we're going to talk about so next week. So what do we say? The disparity. I'm writing it down because you know what I say, a long pencil is better than a short memory. Disparity of retirement accounts. There we go. Now, I also want you to focus on your own personal comfort level. How comfortable are you when it comes to certain types of investments? How comfortable are you with your lifestyle? All right? Is your lifestyle so comfortable that you feel there is nothing more you want to do? Or is your lifestyle not where you want it to be, but you want insight on how to get to the next level? What is your personal comfort level? When we understand the personal comfort level, then we can begin to work with what is called the opportunity cost of savings. As a matter of fact, on slide 13, on the opportunity cost of savings, when we look at the next slide and focus on the opportunity cost of savings, what you will find is that is that some investors who bought certain accounts for over 3 years, when they look at their yield, when they look at the interest rates, they are faced with decisions on whether they want to reinvest their money or take the money out. So when you're looking at your opportunity cost, you're going to invest, but you're going to see how much the opportunity is for you to invest. And then you help use that to determine whether or not you want to continue investing that account. That's what's called opportunity cost. Now, as we look throughout the different slides, we talk about, I think in slide 14, in slide 14, it talks about what is the best possible return. We look at safety, we look at liquidity, we look at easy access. And the reason why we want to look at these areas is because when we are dealing with certain types of investments, in particular cash alternatives, definitely trying to maintain our cash flow. The reason why is because we have to look at, are we going to save or are we going to invest? If the bulk of your money is tied up in retirement accounts and you don't have enough in your savings accounts, you could be putting yourself at a disadvantage when it comes to emergencies. You may subject yourself to higher taxes and penalties, and you may subject yourself to lower performance on your investment accounts when you don't have enough in liquid assets. So in slide 15, we're going to see, it asks a question. The next question on slide 15 says what? The right formula for you. Which one is the right formula? And now, on the left side of the beacon, we see a large amount where? In cash alternative and liquid assets. And then we have a smaller amount in fixed, bonds, stocks, and speculative investments. Or do you need to have a more of a balance for a long-term approach? That depends on your situation. You know, when we talk about investing, when we talk about savings, especially in this concept of cash flow management, everything is not the same for everyone. Meaning that when we look at portfolios, when you look at your situation, where you are today may not always be where you will be tomorrow. Why do we say that? Because lifestyle changes. All right, your financial situation needs to be flexible, not like it's not like a stone tablet, but more so like a rubber band, because it's going to stretch out, it's going to expand, it's going to contract. That's what you want, because lifestyle is going to change. There are going to be some things that where you find yourself, ahead of the game, and then there are times you're going to find yourself behind the 8 ball. So your financial situations need to be flexible enough to be able to accommodate lifestyle changes. That's why no one particular formula is the same for everyone out there, and it shouldn't be. In slide 18, slide 16. In slide 16, it talks about different approaches. All right, some folks may have an approach toward cash alternatives, some may have an approach toward stocks. But let's look at slide 17. I do believe it's going to be the reverse. See, in slide 17, it's the reverse. Do we want a 50-50 split? Let's go to slide 18. All right, slide 18 basically says money matters. Yes, it does. It all matters. So take control. Take control of your money. Take control of your lifelong process of handling your money, because we all are stewards of what we've been blessed with. And when we understand that that blessing comes and how that blessing, from whence our blessing comes, we also understand how the blessing will flow. And dealing with cash flow management, it is a blessing to be able to get up in the morning, to go and be productive so that we can provide for our family, our future, and adequately manage the finances that God bless us with. That is so important. And so when we're dealing with cash flow management, when we're dealing with understanding our cash flow, we are making ourselves better at what we have been blessed with. Source Nation, listen, it's truly been a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to you about some money matters. These things are essential because I want you to be better stewards with what you have. I want you to be able to teach your children and your children's children about the things that can be advantageous for them and those things that are a disadvantage for them. But by all means, teach the children the truth. Take time to understand what you have, because many times we wait to get something new when we need to understand how we handle what we have. I said earlier today, I know when someone had asked me, about, different aspects of, do you need a lot of money or can you just work with something small? I said this. I said, when you're driving down the road, there are some folks that are going to be driving a Porsche, some folks that may drive a Honda, some folks may drive a Ford, and some may drive a Mazda, all right? But they all have to understand the rules of the road. No matter what you are driving, you still have to understand the rules of the road. And no matter what you are driving, you are still trying to get from where? Point A to point B. And as you're driving from point A to point B, there will be times where you may be able to upgrade, all right? And there will be times where you may have to downgrade. But the key to it all is keep moving. Keep moving from point A to point B so that you reach your destination when it comes to your financial future, all right? You can have the most expensive Porsche or expensive car in town, but if it doesn't get you from point A to point B, what good is it? You're better off driving out a hoopty to get you there, slow and steady. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my time with you has come to its allotted end, but I definitely welcome you to continue to hit us up on Facebook on Power Over Tomorrow. Sign up on our business Facebook page, T.S. Mitchell Financial, for your financial information, local information as far as financial matters on a daily basis. Also remember, we're on T.S. Mitchell Power when it comes to Twitter. Hey, keep tweeting, tweet-a-lee-a-lee. Y'all remember that song by the Jacksons. I don't need me to sing it. But then also, hey, our website, tsmitchell.com, is full of information that allows you to make those sound financial decisions and calculators, even the slide presentation here. If you want to review it on your own time, go to the Education Center, and where it says presentations, just open it up, go through it again, and continue to share our information with your family and your friends and even your foes. Because even if they don't like you, when they see how much you care about them, that you want the best for them, they may just become your friends again. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say your friend, so I want to give you these parting words. In your walk of life, may the road rise up to meet you. May the wind forever be at your back. May the sun shine upon you with his warmth. May the rain fall upon you ever so gently. Until the next time when we can cross each other's path, may the God of heaven hold you in the hollow of his hands. I am Tyrone T.S. Mitchell. This has been Power Over Tomorrow. SRN Live TV. Ladies and gentlemen, be well, be blessed, and be your best.